I forgot how bright it is up here. Thank you, everyone. Happy Father's Day to all the dads in our audience tonight. First, I want to take the time to thank Yi and the Grad coordinating team for inviting me to speak at this gathering and for your work in putting this incredible celebration together. I also wanted to take the time to thank my family and my extended C family here, and newer friends who generously came with me here tonight. I want to take the time right now to recognize and show respect for the native land that we presently occupy. It's important that even in celebration that we not forget the historic traumas of our community or that of others. So we face our past to show respect and to restore justice as a part of our collective healing. So I accepted the invitation to speak at Grad for the class of 2012 with both honor and humility. It did not seem that long ago that I was helping the very first group of students coordinate the first Grad for UC Davis. It was held outside the Alumni Center in 100-degree weather, and I remember the students and I made hundreds of these paper fans so that people wouldn't pass out from heat exposure. Can you all imagine sitting outside for this graduation celebration? I knew that that year Grad was very special to UC Davis because the event very naturally had a big family gathering feel to it. We upgraded to air-conditioned Freeborn Hall eventually, and here we are today with Grad in its 5th year and still going on very strong. I follow many inspiring Grad speakers, so it is my only goal tonight to minimize how much I embarrass myself, and with hopes that by the end of this speech, the graduates aren't whispering to each other, "For real, we asked her to be our keynote speaker?" So here goes. It was exactly 10 years ago that I was sitting in the same seats as our graduates. I reflect back to my undergraduate years at UC Davis and have nothing but warm and loving feelings for a place where I struggled and at times hated. If you don't already know, Davis is a weird city, and UC Davis is kind of a weird school. Imagine telling an outsider you take pride in things like having a cow as an unofficial mascot, or calling yourself a proud Aggie, or how cool it is to have large egghead sculptures all over your campus. I don't know of any other school in this nation that has bike cops giving people BUIs and lets drunk people milk cows at picnic day. Yes, friends, UC Davis is truly a unique place, but it was the place I chose to run to get away from my quote-unquote home. I remember I entered this school feeling so inadequate, not smart like the others. I couldn't speak up in class with confidence. I couldn't write academic papers as well as my peers. I felt very different. I felt like I didn't belong. My parents told me there were no excuses. If you work hard, you will do well. I know my parents had a particular image of what college life would be like, probably the same image some of the parents here have. Getting through college was really, really hard. But UC Davis was a place I would call quote-unquote home for many more years than I expected. College was when I started to see who I was and where I dreamed of who I could be. I started asking more questions about my history, and during that time, I learned to have more empathy for my parents and for my family. For most of my life, I carried a deep sense of loneliness. Loneliness in many ways was my loyal companion. All my private thoughts, all my private frustrations, all found me back to my companion. And for so long, I wanted a different life. A life that I could understand, a life that didn't seem so hard, I yearned for a sense of home, a place where I felt safe, where I felt loved and supported, where I felt like I belonged. I longed for a place I could go home to and find that someone thought to leave the light on for me. For years after I graduated, 4 years after I graduated, all of that began to change. In 2006, I made enough money to buy my first plane ticket back to Vietnam. So I went with my mom, dad, grandmother, and brother. Right as my 2 feet reached the doors to step out of the airport, the heat waves smacked my face as a foreshadowing message that the questions I carried about why I was born in the US and why I existed would be answered here. My family and I made our way through the bumpy, unpaved roads for 3 hours to reach Vĩnh Long, a small province southwest of Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City. We stepped out of the van to be greeted by people who would take small groups of us on paddle boats into the muddy Orange River. When we made our way across the river to a very lush area, I stepped out of the boat and had people pull me up so I could climb to more leveled land. We walked, and I remember the trees eventually clearing and knowing that I had arrived, finally, to my grandpa's house. My grandpa died in 1992 when I was 12 years old. He was a man who longed to meet me since I was born. We were 2 people separated by a tragic history, and whom I later learned lost numerous children to illness and malnutrition. He had a daughter who lived only to the age of 6 years old. And the story is that I was a mirror image of her. I grew up hearing many stories of this man who loved me from way across the globe. A man who cropped pictures of me as a child and made collages of us holding hands together. It was the closest that he ever got to being with me until my trip in 2006 when I arrived to his home. The doors were open wide, the natural light lit up the writing he left on the walls in chalk with the dimensions of the house and his own quotes, and all of that was still left there. I walked along a dirt path to meet him at his gravesite. I saw my grandpa and grandma's plot and found his 6-year-old daughter, my aunt, buried right in between them. In that moment, I felt and communicated only through my tears to him, I came home. For so long, I continued to run far away from all that had pained me, all that made me who I am. I came to realize that along my journey that a sense of home was to be found inside of me, and that the only way I would ever find peace was to look within. And my trip to Vietnam was a step on that journey. I was born in this body, in this place, to learn what it means to be Southeast Asian and a survivor. I humbly carry the life legacies of all those we lost or left behind. And I do this alongside others, like the many Southeast Asians who have already graduated from UC Davis and are back here tonight to give sea love and support for the graduates on this stage today. We come back so that our community stays strong. The graduation theme this year, Embracing Our Legacy, reminds me of a Hmong father who was the Grad Keynote speaker one year. Even though I do not speak the Hmong language, and I won't try, I remember feeling moved by his words while one of his daughters translated. I remember listening so intently with my heart and feeling connectedness to his experience and that of his family since fleeing his homeland. Not knowing where all of his family members were during the war, and to miraculously reunite with one another with such resilience. Then to have arrived to a place like UC Davis to give a speech and celebrate the graduation of his daughter, which I know was no small achievement for her. This is what I know when people ask me what it means to be Southeast Asian. It's about having faith that is greater than our fears and pushing forward together, even when one of us is tired and needs to be picked up. Knowing it's going to take us longer to get there, we continue to push forward together. A writer, Susan Bosuck, in one of her pieces, describes how young trees grow better when it's planted in an area with older trees. The reason, it seems, is that the roots of the young tree are able to follow the pathways created by former trees and implant themselves more deeply. Over time, the roots of many trees may actually graft themselves to one another, creating an intricate foundation hidden under the ground. In this way, stronger trees share resources with weaker ones so that the whole forest becomes healthier. And that is legacy, an interconnection across time, across the globe, with a need for those who came before us, and a responsibility for each of us to the Southeast Asians that come after. The journey that led me to psychology was a journey to learn how to be with people suffering and my own. A poem by Adrienne Rich beautifully states that, "My heart is moved by all that I cannot save. I recognize that I am a member of this community and that the only person that can save me is myself." I used to refer to myself, as many of my students know, as a hot mess. But now I embrace the idea that I am a beautiful mess. In fact, we are all a beautiful mess. And the beautiful mess that we have as a Southeast Asian community is one to be celebrated, because acknowledging it, embracing it, is a step closer to our community's healing. In the moments we feel most weak, we momentarily forget we were once strong. We all have the innate ability to recover, to cope with difficulty, and to thrive. And in order to thrive, we must remember we need to we need others to stand with us on our journey. And I know, I'm Southeast Asian, so I know it's not easy for some of us to ask for help. Asking for help requires trust. It sometimes makes us feel like a burden. It makes us feel vulnerable. But we so easily forget that it is a gift to let others help us. It's a gift to let others love us. It also gives others a sense of purpose. So we remember that there are others on the road, and we need to give ourselves permission to lean on one another, and sometimes allow ourselves to be carried. Only then will we thrive as a community so that our children, our nieces, our nephews will grow up in a world where they know safety, they know self-respect, they know what it means to live healthy, loving, hardworking beings in the world among the legacy of other Southeast Asian trees. Graduates, let your faith be greater than your fear. And on this continued journey, my simple message to you is to take care of yourself and one another. Leave the light on for those you love, and trust that there will come days when you come home and find that someone left the light on for you, and whisper to yourself, "I came home. Thank you."